Welcome to AI Snacks with Romy and Robbie, an AI literacy podcast focused on translating AI and robotic technologies from difficult to easy to understand. I'm your host, Anastassia, and I'm CEO and founder of AI Edutainment. And for those watching on YouTube, this is the real Romy, my British short hair and the protagonist of Romy and Robbie AI book series. Today, we are discussing cybercrime and cybersecurity in the age of AI. If cybercrime were measured as a country, it would have a GDP of about $10.5 trillion in 2025, making it the world's third largest economy, behind only the United States and China, and ahead of major economies such as Japan or Germany. And this number reflects the global annual economic impact of cybercrime, including stolen money, loss of reputation, fraud, and data destruction. Criminals use AI to automate phishing, detect system weaknesses, and adapt in real time to bypass traditional defenses. AI-generated code and malware mutate to avoid detection. Synthetic videos and audio manipulations are growing, expected to surpass 8 million pieces online in 2025. And attackers now combine data theft with harassment and social engineering. And yes, there's such a thing as quantum computing. I'm very proud that the first volume of Romy and Robbie AI series is dedicated to quantum chipsets. And when the systems are ready to go on scale, they will break existing encryption algorithms, prompting investment in post-quantum cryptography. Today, I have a guest to discuss cybercrime and cybersecurity in the age of artificial intelligence. And this is Alec Crawford. He's a podcaster himself. He hosts a fabulous show called AI Risk Reward. And Alec is the founder and the CEO of a company called Artificial Intelligence Risk. It's a pioneering company focused on AI governance and creating AI systems safely and responsibly. He knows a lot about compliance and risk management in the age of AI, and he worked with a number of very prominent financial services brands, such as Lauterbach, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, IBS, and Ziff Brothers Investments. Alec holds a degree of computer science from Harvard University, where he specialized in AI long before it got into fashion, and he began building early neural networks during his studies. So now it's time to open the studio to Alec. Alec, welcome to my studio. So thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. This is going to be amazing.
Thank you. And Alec, you started in AI long before AI became fashionable. So you studied AI in Harvard and you started programming simple neural networks long before someone could spell ChatGPT and LLMs. So now you created this fabulous company focused on risk management and compliance and AI risk governance. And this is very important. But what kind of, made you to move into the entrepreneurship path, because you worked in large banks across all the financial industries all around the globe. So how did you become entrepreneur?
Yeah, I really think it came about because this is how I can make the largest difference going forward in the world, right? You can work at a big bank, you're part of a machine, you're doing a lot of great stuff. But if you really want to make a difference in the world, you need a mission. And our mission is to help everyone use AI safely and securely. And right now, that's very hard to do, right? If you're an individual and you have a lab report and your doctor talks about it, but it's kind of confusing and you want to understand it better, you should not upload that lab report to ChatGPT, right? Because eventually it could be exposed, right? It's not private, right? How do you do that, right? So that's our goal, is really to help everybody understand what's safe, what's not safe, and create safer paths for everyone to use AI, whether you're the President of the United States or a consumer trying to figure out their lab report.
This is quite a very great explanation because it shows that it concerns every single individual on this planet who is connected to something online. And I was mentioning in my introductory remarks that cybercrime these days is the third largest economy worldwide. So we are talking about trillions of US dollars. Could you a little bit explain how AI is getting utilized by cyber criminals to master those attacks?
Yeah, there's a number of things going on. Look, if you're a consumer or you work at a company, that the main thing to think about there is what's called spear phishing attacks. So those are emails coming to you that look real, that may even have your name in there, that may even be a company that you recognize and shop at, like Target or LL Bean or whatever, but they're fake, right? So if you hover your mouse over the link, it doesn't say Target or LL Bean, it says something else, right? And in general, what I recommend is just don't click on links in emails, right? Just go yourself to the website that you know is actually real and see what's going on. The latest one right now is unfortunately fake invitations to birthday parties.
Yeah.
Right. So it looks like a real invitation. It's your friend's name. You click on it. Oops, you've been hacked. Right. So just don't click on any of this stuff. Just call up your friend, say, hey, I want to go. Right. They say, what party? Then you say, oops, you've been hacked, right? Or someone's sending out emails. So that's one part. I'd say that the part where people are losing a lot of money right now is in crypto scams,
Yeah.
right? So it's people reaching out saying, hey, I can make you lots of money in crypto. Just give me a little bit. And then they keep pretending that they're making money for you. And it's all fake, right? And they're just trying to get you to send your life savings to them. It's terrible. There's a bunch of different names for it. One of them is called pig butchering. And these are not people in the US typically. They're people in China or North Korea. And, if anybody asks you to convert your life savings into crypto and send it, just don't do it, please.
And no one is immune. Actually, 3 days ago, I received an email with a link telling me that I was driving too fast in Italy, which might have happened. And it looked really genuine. So I really went to the website of this administrative authority in Italy. And I wrote them in an email because I could not comprehend whether it was fake or not fake. And I said, look, so this is the reference number. Can't remember driving there in the past 5 months, but maybe I'm wrong. Please send me a reference whether this is genuine or not. And actually, they responded and they asked me to forward this email to some of their sites because obviously they receive multiple complaints from individuals. And this is just one example. And I'm actually in AI and in cybersecurity. So no one is immune and no one laptop is protected or mobile device for all the places. And I'm just wondering, with the proliferation of the edge computing, all the sensors, how AI will shape the global cybersecurity space. What are your takes on the future trends?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing if you're in the cybersecurity space right now is to realize that you're going to have to fight AI with AI. Right?
Yeah.
And what that means is even if you're not 100% comfortable with it, you're going to have to automate responses to cyber attacks. So what that means, for example, is in our system, so AI risk, as you know, and much of the audience does not know, makes safety and security software for Gen AI. So in our system, if we detect that a user has been compromised, meaning it looks like they're doing attacks on Gen AI or trying to jailbreak Gen AI, we can actually cut off that user from AI immediately. But that is an option for our clients. They can choose to do that or choose not to do that. And that's effectively AI fighting AI. If you choose not to do that, that happens at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday, and your humans don't wake up for 6 hours, that is a long time for someone to be inside your system, extracting data or doing all kinds of bad stuff where you can't do anything about it. So that's my point is AI is available 24/7 to help you with your cybersecurity defense. People in general are not.
I'm just wondering. So, the first 5 years of my career, and that was now 34 years ago, I spent at Munich Re. And obviously, reinsurance is a very important player in the financial security system. And, now I'm looking into all kind of insurance policy preventing the financial loss due to cybercrime. What is your experience with this field? Because I'm still seeing companies receiving huge questionnaires with all kind of requests and questions. And if you are not ticking one box, then you will not receive a coverage. But then, you're not really prepared to respond truthfully to all those questions. So how do you see this emerging space of cybersecurity insurance?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think they're pretty far behind. I mean, years behind. I can't talk about the name of the company here, but if you want to reach out, we've actually partnered with a cybersecurity company where if a company is using our software to defend, they will actually get $1,000 discount on their cybersecurity policy. And again, that makes sense, right? The cybersecurity insurance company knows that they're being protected by us, they're safer, therefore you get to pay less money for your cybersecurity insurance. That's very rare. To my knowledge, we're the only company that cybersecurity companies will give you a discount for using, like in the world right now.
Congratulations. It's a huge step, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. So this is obviously something that is going to become more and more popular. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, before car alarms and anti-lock brakes and things like that became that common, your car insurance company would give you discounts. Oh, you've got an alarm, we're going to give you a discount. Oh, you've got anti-lock brakes, we're going to give you a discount. That's where we're going, right? We're going to where you're going to get, for being safer, you'll get a discount. And it's very difficult for cybersecurity insurance companies, unless you're very large and they're doing some kind of investigation, to figure out like how well positioned are you, right?
Yeah.
What's your score? Like how safe is what you're doing? And part of that, obviously, they can figure out by who have you hired. If you've hired us, it must be safer. You get a discount, right? That's all.
It's interesting because, the cyber risk could be put into several buckets. So, of course, there's stealing of data and, a data file means something to the regulators. So there are all kinds of different regulatory regimes, and it might be, let's say, $3,000 or $7,000, depending on what file we have. And I'm always saying, in companies, the major culprit is quite often HR organization, not because they're stupid, but because they don't archive people. And even if someone remotely works for the organization like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, they're still in this active system, and every file might be a window for an intruder, right? So then there is business interruption. So the whole bonanza of ransomware, where people encrypt your system and demand money. And during this time, you can't use your billing system or whatsoever, and then you start losing. So how do you calculate the full exposure of something as difficult as cyber? For example, for fire insurances, we know how to calculate the exposure. For cybersecurity, quite often we don't. Are you thinking about this category on how to quantify the cybersecurity risk?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super hard to do, right? And I think that that whole business is going to undergo huge change over the next decade as some companies figure out they're not charging enough money and others don't, right? And I think also there are going to continue to be exclusions. What many people don't realize is there already are pretty broad exclusions where your cybersecurity insurance will not pay. One of them is intentional disclosure of information. So, for example, not one of our clients, but we saw a case in Texas where a senior bank representative uploaded a bunch of consumer data, their customer data, to one of the third-party AI systems, Perplexity. And what's the problem with that? The problem with that is Perplexity's software license say they own all the data you send them. And they all own all the data that they send you. So that's a violation of customer confidentiality. And they could potentially have been fined by their banking regulator over $20 million. And by the way, since that's subject to the Graham-Leach-Bliley Act in the US, which protects consumer information and finance, the individual involved could have been fined personally $2 million. Now, luckily, Perplexity was able to contain the damage once they were contacted, but that was obviously a huge risk. So my point is that I think is really the piece of the puzzle that we spend a lot of time on, is like, how do you keep the consumer data safe? How do you keep it from getting stolen? Much harder dealing with ransomware that comes in and just encrypts everything in your system. Obviously, look, you can have backups, you can have offsite backups. There's all kinds of companies that will purport to help you with that. But that's not what we do. But hopefully your data is secure enough that they can't steal it and put it out on the dark web. And it's not just consumer data. It could even be email. There have been
Yeah.
multiple cases where those emails are stolen and they say, look, we're going to release them unless you pay us a lot of money or whatever. Even anything like that can be bad. It doesn't have to be full company compromise. It could be one little thing like the CEO's emails.
I mean, we remember all those cases with Hollywood studios and all type of scandals. And I think those attacks will just increase in their impact. But just listening to you, I'm thinking before we engage with AI, we must have data literacy in organizations, because this person who uploaded data into Perplexity, probably this person was not evil. Maybe he meant to do
Correct.
something, I don't know, sensible with that, but he did not think about the consequences because he mistook data with, let's say, a physical file or something. And it's just the cyberspace is not organized as my library behind me. So unfortunately, right? So probably I will spot, someone lurking in my books, but you can't really spot something serious in a cyberspace. So how do you address this data literacy in organizations? And can you educate people about it?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Well, look, I think, we keep on seeing in the news, hey, lots of AI projects fail, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting there is I think it's not the technology failing, it's the change management failing and the training failing, right? Like if you just give people AI and go, okay, have fun, like people are like, well, what do I do with it? Right. So really, really need the training and the change management so people kind of more deeply understand. And I think it's literally every company today should be teaching every employee about AI. And if you're not doing that already, you're already behind. And that's obviously something that we help with as we onboard our AI software clients. You brought up a very important point before, which is around AI governance. And in our process, there are really two directions of AI governance, right? Because one direction is what's the AI allowed to do? Because you can block the AI from getting access to certain data. You never want to have it
Brilliant.
access to your customer data. Don't give it access. If you're nervous about that, just don't do it. That's fine. Or maybe you don't do it for the first year while you shake down the whole system and make sure it's locked down. But additionally, on the other side, for individuals, AI governance means each individual only gets access to certain capabilities of AI, certain data sets, certain models. So the one example, for example, is, got people in the call center. They've got access to a frequently asked questions, AI agent that can help them answer customer questions. They've got access to consumer data, customer data, but they don't have access to the books and records of the firm or the CEO's emails, right? And then vice versa, the CEO has access to their emails and board transcripts and, agents to help do strategic planning, but actually not access to the customer data, right? And not access to what the call center has. This is very important kind of separations, because if one individual gets compromised, the bad actor only gets access to a little bit of what's going on, not everything at the institution. Because if someone gets access to everything, that's obviously a much bigger problem. Yeah, so that's how I think about it: is both directions of AI governance.
It makes me really think about how do you think about decentralized AI in organization and even decentralized data markets within organizations or in ecosystem of organizations?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think look, there are two different perspectives there. And my perspective is that from an AI standpoint, you're going to need to have centralized control, right? If you just have 100 people using 100 different AI systems and agents, and you don't have any way of knowing what people are doing and what agents are doing, like eventually something's going to blow up, melt down, create a problem, and you may not even know it for a month, right? The flip side, of course, is once you give AI access to all your data, that becomes also a risk, because if someone can jailbreak the AI or break in there and get access to everything, you've got a problem, right? So I do think it's a balance, and it really depends on each organization, and each organization is going to need to rank like, here's how important or how secret this data is, and do we want to give AI access to it? The other very important thing I would mention there is, what we do is we preserve what's called permission awareness for individuals using AI, right? So if I log in and I use AI and I try to get access, even though I've got access to email, I try to access, the CRO's email or something like that. I can't do that with AI because I don't have permission to do that in Microsoft already, right? So it's belts and suspenders governance where you individually need access and then the AI also needs access. So there are ways to lock things down. The other important thing we were talking about, consumer information before, is everybody needs to remember AI was originally a research project or a
Yeah.
research product, right? Things aren't automatically encrypted. Things aren't automatically safe. It was built kind of for like experimenting, right? So you need to make sure what you're doing, especially if you're a regulated institution like an insurance company or a bank, is encrypted on the way, right? So, for example, if someone types a social security number or a passport number into our software, it gets encrypted before it goes to AI, before it gets stored anywhere. Everything's encrypted at motion and at rest. Like if you're not doing that, you are likely violating Greenwich in the US or GDPR in Europe. You just have to do that. It is table stakes at this point.
Yeah. You host a fabulous podcast, AI Risk Reward. And frankly, I really love the title because it is a coin with two sides. So there's, of course, a huge reward when you utilize AI for competitive advantage. It should be within the competitive strategy of any industry and any company. And at the same time, of course, it poses risk because it's a tool in the hands of criminals and some employees who can't properly use it. Just, from your personal perspective, your vita, what you saw in companies, and some of your guests on the podcast might have revealed one or another story. What is the most horrible story you've ever heard about AI in hands of cyber criminals? Could you share something with us?
Sure. Yeah. I think the most horrible story is really um, a long-term hack of an individual, right? So normally have a situation where cyber criminals come in, they steal your money, they compromise your email, whatever it is. But similar to kind of long haul COVID, they can have a long haul hack.
Oh, yes.
So this is literally a situation where cyber criminals believed that an individual had a lot of cryptocurrency, and they were willing to go to any lengths to steal that cryptocurrency. So not only did she get hacked, they actually broke into her house. They rootkitted her husband's phone so they could basically see whatever he was doing on his phone. They put a hidden surveillance camera in her bedroom, right? And they're just trying to capture as much as possible, and figure out like passwords and how can they get access to this cryptocurrency and steal it. But at the point where you're talking about, millions of dollars, like to them, this was nothing, right? In terms of being able to do all these different, obviously very illegal things. I'm sure many people have read in the paper how recently Napoleonic crown jewels were stolen from the Louvre in
Yeah.
7 minutes. Again, priceless. How much did the criminals spend on that? Not a lot. They risked going to jail, obviously, but the amount of money to buy an angle grinder is pretty cheap. So think about that with cyber criminals. They're spending a little bit of money to try to steal a lot of money. And they're highly incented to do that, no matter how crazy it sounds like it's from a spy movie.
It's absolutely like a novel or a movie. And what I'm hearing from this, there's a huge supply chain actually involved in those companies because those are illegal businesses, right? So I heard or I read somewhere that those companies have employment schedule and they have holiday kind of policy and they have working hours. So what did you learn in your practice from how those businesses are organized and how they operate?
Yeah, it's exactly right. They operate like actual businesses. And I think what I'm hearing from a lot of cybersecurity professionals is the bad guys are actually iterating faster than the good guys, right?
Yeah.
Because if your goal is to steal money and you send out a bunch of spear phishing emails and they don't work, what are you going to do? You're going to go to AI and say, make these better, make this work better, be more convincing, right? just the way technology companies in the US pioneered A/B testing. Let's try this and let's try that and see which one works better. That's what cyber criminals are doing, right? They're sending out different emails. They're trying different things. I think the other real problem there is that, you even go back 5 years and there weren't that many technologically capable developers to do all these things that cyber criminals are doing today. Now people just go into Claude and start coding stuff. And as you point out, it's an entire environment on the dark web where you can buy hardware and software to do kinds of things. Oh, I want something that makes a credit card. I can buy that for a few $100 on the dark web.
Yeah.
Or I need something that will create a Trojan horse and drop it on people's laptops when they click on a link. Oh, I can buy that in the dark web. And these are not expensive things anymore. A couple $100 there, a couple $100 there. Have you heard of these bug bounty programs before?
Yeah, I did, but my listeners did not.
So bug bounty program is if you find a bug in some current software, whether it's Microsoft Word or something else, you can report it. And if you're the first to report it, you will actually get paid money, which is great. And we're not talking tons of money, depending on how severe it is. It might be $1,000, it might be $10,000, but it's real money, right? Real money. Well, the catch now is if it's severe enough, the bad guys, meaning North Korea or somebody in Russia, might pay $1 million for it because they want to use it to exploit things, as opposed to the good guys want to fix the problem so no one else has to suffer. But so that's a real problem and a real game changer, unfortunately.
And I'm just wondering, so, I sat on a bunch of corporate boards, and I was really trying to develop an ecosystem of cyber helpers around those companies. And still, I was mitigating a number of cyber attacks, which usually came, by the way, from dormant servers, even nothing, let's say, active, where an employee was kind of guilty because he or she did not pay attention to something. So I'm just wondering, in your practice, how do you start to really pay attention and to do your due diligence, to do your homework? Because in my experiences, businesses are overwhelmed and they ask, so how much money should I really spend on X, Y, Z? And of course, I understand you have your system. There might be other providers, less sophisticated, on the same level, but how do you start?
Yeah. Well, look, I sit on a public company board. I run the risk committee. It's called Dynex Capital. It's all on the internet. And my focus is really on the biggest risks from the board perspective, or the biggest risks and the existential risks. Like if you have your second most important vendor and something bad happens to them, all right, that's bad, but you're not out of business, right? Like let management focus on that. You have a particular vendor that, if they're not working, you're out of business or can't operate. That's a problem. And a great example is the servers on the East Coast of the United States for Amazon recently went down for hours. And of course, people are like, hey, my website's not working, or my app is not working, or whatever. That is obviously a single point of failure for a lot of people. We operate on multiple different cloud providers. So if one is down, like Amazon, we can go over and use Azure, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's something to think about in terms of resilience.
I think it's a great practical advice for companies, just distributed cloud network, right? And do you think that with the proliferation of AI and maybe even at some point in time quantum technologies, do you think that we will see more on-premise adoption of systems or hybrid systems? There was some time when everyone moved into cloud, but I hear a lot that companies are thinking kind of, maybe I'm safer to keep it all in my basement.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that I think the ship has kind of sailed on that, and I think we are going to see continued shifts towards the cloud providers. Maybe multi-provider clouds are the way to go, as we were talking about earlier. There is a difference between private cloud and software as a service, or SaaS, though, right? And I think if we go back to this summer, the largest cybersecurity conference in the world is the RSA Cybersecurity Conference, which happens on the West Coast of the US every year. And at that conference, the JP Morgan Chief Information Security Officer put an open letter out to all their suppliers of software and vendors, and they've obviously got hundreds. And I'm going to paraphrase, but he basically said, please, please, for the love of God, start prioritizing security over adding new features. Because literally every day there's some new bug that they run into that's creating a cybersecurity vulnerability in software as a service. Now, we've taken the other side of that by we don't provide software as a service. We provide software that is installed on our customers' private clouds,
Yeah.
right? Or on-prem, whether that's AWS or Amazon or whatever. It just massively reduces the vulnerability because all the compute, all the data is inside our customers' firewall. So that, I think, is going to be the shift. It's away from SaaS and towards private cloud. The advantage that also gives you is you can connect into anything, AI into anything you want internally, right? You can connect into your email and Teams and messaging systems and data and core data for a bank or whatever, and never have to worry it's going outside my firewall. This is at risk. It's inside your firewall. So that I think is a really important nuance.
It might solve plenty of problems. Alec, I'm mindful of time and I try to keep those episodes short, but I have one question. So cyber criminals work globally. And there is not such a thing as, let's say, a cybersecurity law of the United States or of France, because obviously there are industrial laws, then there are state laws, and they might be even a technology impacted, like California Teddy Bear Act, which is about IoT sensors. So how do you work when you address data governance and cybersecurity governance and AI governance with multiple regulations and legislations if you are to work with a global company?
Yeah, it is tricky. I mean, I think they really set the tone in terms of are they going to have rules that are different in Europe and the US and stand up different AI capabilities? That's pretty standard. We currently work with all the different compliance regimes, whether they're US or European, and down to the specific industry. So, for example, in the US, we do Graham Leach Bliley for banks, and we do HIPAA for healthcare, right? And I think that's really the best way to do it. I think trying to find one overarching set of compliance rules would be across the globe would be super hard. In fact, even banks in the US, we're starting to see all these different state rules pop up for banks and consumer finance. And many of them have an escape clause. What they say is, or you can use the National Institute of Science and Technology Artificial Intelligence Risk Management Framework. And if you do that, you don't have to do any of this. And that's one of the things that we focus on is 100% automated NIST AI risk management framework. Because if you don't automate it, it is literally someone's full-time job to keep track of that. That is not a good use of someone's time, shall we say.
Yeah. When we started this conversation, it was raining cats and dogs in Basel, and now out of sudden the sun came out. It's
Welcome to
actually
Basel.
blinding me. Exactly. So, but I would love to ask you as my closing question, are you an optimist or a pessimist when it comes to the cyber risk and cyber exposure in the age of AI with everything what is coming, like, quantum encryption and etc.?
I'm an optimist for AI over the next decade. I think it's going to be amazing and do amazing things. And I think one of the keys there is going to be both personalized healthcare and also just discoveries that we would take us 100 years on our own. I think that there are going to be some cancers that will literally be curable courtesy of AI over the next 10 or 20 years. So that is amazing and incredible. On the cybersecurity side, I'm way more cautious. I think the bad guys are catching up fast, and we need to just do more, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the more that we can automate and use AI to help, the better. It's not all there yet. And I'll give you some examples. The very common for someone in cybersecurity to receive way too many alerts in a given day. I mean, more than a human can cover, right? There might be 100, there might be 1,000, but whatever it is, it's just like, yeah, this is not helpful, right?
Yeah.
AI can help screen those and go, hey, here's the 3 you really need to pay attention to.
Yeah.
So I think it's not just AI fighting AI, which is important. It's also AI focusing our attention and going back to the original paper about the AI transformer. Attention is all you need, right? So
yeah. Well, yeah, thank you so much. I think this is really a golden line. And by the way, human attention and not those attention heads as
yes.
defined in the 2017 papers. Alec, I can't really praise you enough for the work you are doing. It's very important. And I think organizations really need to wake up if they haven't till now, and start investing into data literacy, AI literacy, and frankly, cybersecurity literacy. And it's not something which could be closed as a gap within, let's say, 1 week. So it's a process, and every single employee must know about it. It's not just something reserved for IT people or for financial officer and chief risk officer, but everyone touches data, and everyone must understand what is at stake for the company and maybe even for the person. So thank you so much for your work, and maybe in a year we can discuss it further and see what
Sounds
happened.
great.
Thank you so much. And therewith, I'm closing this show. Thank you so much. And I will see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much.